In the final episode of Let's Talk Internationalization, I will speak with Vincent van Noord, Director of Europe at EBTC. Hi, Vincent.
Hi, Ada. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. In the series, we have seen several participants from Invest India, bilateral chambers, and other sectoral experts. What would you like to highlight to summarize the series?
Thanks. So I think it was a very good series. We had several speakers from Europe, but also the Indian side. So it's good to get both perspectives. I mean, the Swiss were there, the Swedish were there, the French were there, and also we got Invest India there from the Indian side. And I think looking at from what they, it's interesting to see that they all have different angles. So that also I think demonstrates how diverse India is. When we look at the Swiss, for example, we had the Swiss Business Hub. We had Florent Müller there, and he spoke a little bit more about the from India to Europe, India to Switzerland here per se, and what he highlighted is the awareness. So I think in Switzerland they're not always aware of the opportunities and what's happening in India, and vice versa. When Indians think about Switzerland, they think about mountains and holiday and movies. But there's actually a lot of innovation, a lot of tech, a lot of great manufacturing, a lot of opportunities in Switzerland. So that is his focus. And one of the interesting things that he highlighted was that when you want to work with India on the Indian side, you have to look, long term. You have to work with them for the long haul, and that also was repeated by some others. So that's something that I'll come back to later. We also had Arti Davis from the Swedish Business Council. She highlighted that there's several initiatives going on between the Swedish and the Indian government on the government side, frameworks and policies, and ease of doing business. So there's a lot of good opportunities which are there. There's a lot of good stuff happening. A lot of tech companies from Sweden are very active in the Indian space. Yes, and healthcare, fintech, B2B, startups. And so positive, I think, again, highlighting what the opportunities are in India. We had Prashant Thakur from Invest India. Also, his perspective was interesting because he demonstrated all the activities that the Indian government is doing and that Invest India is doing together with the state governments who are focusing heavily on trade and investment. There are various summits going on until end of this month, I believe. So a lot of push and pull from there. A lot of focus on opportunities, on ease of doing business, on incentives. Also, Invest India is looking at large international events where they're, talking about the opportunities and promoting India. So good stuff happening from the government side. And lastly, we had the French. We had Paul Convar from IFCI, from the French Chamber of Commerce. And so the French are very active in India. A lot of opportunities. A lot of big companies are working very closely with. A lot of partnerships have been developed with the Indian companies. Several sectors they're active in the French companies. And she highlighted that a lot of skilled labor. There's a huge market size and middle class, I think, which we already know. So yeah, a lot of positivity. I think a lot of dynamism in India, also from the French perspective. And she also highlighted that if you want to do business in India, you have to be there a little bit for the long haul. So interesting insights, and I think this was a good series. And I think there should be scope for a new phase in the next series for different people across the European continent.
Let's see. Thank you so much for that. But in your experience when interacting with European SMEs, what are their views when they explore the Indian market and they look for business opportunities here? What are the main points that you have noticed?
So over the years, I've been interacting a lot with various companies in Europe and in India, and so within EBTC we largely deal with the SMEs, so small and medium companies, and like some of our counterparts had mentioned that if you want to go to India, you have to be there for the long haul. And if you are an SME, you have some constraints, right? You don't have very high budgets, you don't have a lot of manpower, you don't have a lot of bandwidth. So, to explore a market in like India is then maybe not so tough, because initially they would focus on their domestic markets, right? And then if that's maybe going well, then they can expand to the European region. And then after Europe, they have the whole world that they can explore potentially. And then you have to make a choice. You want to go to the Middle East, you want to go to America, or you want to go to a place like India. And so if you're kind of limited in your possibilities, capabilities, then India is not that close, not that easy, but it is at the same time there is a lot of opportunity. There's a huge market. There's massive potential. So I think what they would like to see SMEs generally is that there needs to be something concrete, concise, some project opportunity that they can, or maybe a partnership where they can enter into a project, and then that will make them more enthusiastic, more prone to look at a market like India, where the gestation period then should not be too long initially, but then once something is up and running, something is going, then they can look at the long haul, but they need to have something to clamp onto in the beginning.
And last but not least, can you highlight EBTC's role and approach towards internationalization in the Europe-India business corridor?
So what I just highlighted about how SMEs are, potentially looking at the Indian market, that is something that we try to sort of support from EBTC's perspective, is that we, when we're focusing on the Europe-India business corridor and in companies who are looking at India, we try to firstly identify what is the demand in India. And on the basis of that, we look at creating either ourselves or with partners, projects, programs, and clusters. So that companies have an opportunity to tap into this demand, and we can come up with concrete, structures where there's maybe, in a group, you can look at a project opportunity, or you can, we create a platform where you can demonstrate your technology and you have a good visibility to showcase to various stakeholders and government agencies and potential partners. So and we look at how can we maybe do pilot projects. These are a couple of things that we do as EBTC to help them overcome these let's say these initial bottlenecks for entering the market and having concrete opportunities, so that they can do something in the short term which will help them ultimately in the long term.
Thank you so much, Vincent, for your insights and sharing your experience. Looking forward to the next series and next series of Let's Talk Internationalization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aran. Well done. Good job. Looking forward. Thanks.